Hello everyone, this is a quick intro to using AWS Educate. So let's have a look at it. So what is AWS? It stands for Amazon Web Services, cloud platform or cloud provider. It's probably the biggest in the world. I believe it is. There are others, but we're going to use AWS. So the cloud is an abstraction layer provided by software that sits over server and storage farms. So there's this virtualization-like software that sits over the hardware and allows us to use it in a virtualized fashion. So it's not one-to-one like with your desktop where you have one operating system on the hardware. This is hardware unimaginable in scope, lots and lots of servers, lots and lots of memory, lots and lots of disk space, and we are using pieces of it. So major cloud providers such as Google Cloud Platform, Azure, AWS, IBM, there are others as OpenShift, it's not OpenShift, it's Open something provided by Red Hat. They all have underlying farms, and these are distributed around the world. So the reason that we're using AWS in this class is because that with AWS Educate, I can give you a certain number of credits, and then you can use them, and I can kind of help you with them and make sure that you're not being billed ridiculous amounts. So if you had to have a regular AWS account, or some of the student accounts, some student accounts on some platforms, they're limited and they have a one-year span, and you can gobble up the money really quickly. But this one, I'm giving you a certain amount, and hopefully it's within a framework that you won't use all of it, and you don't have to have a regular account, so you don't have to give them a credit card. So the problem with cloud providers is that you're charged for everything. So you're charged by where you run it. I mentioned it's all over the world. You can specify the location where you want it to run. So if I had customers in Europe, I might want my instances to run in Europe. But if I'm running in Europe and the people who are accessing it are coming from North America, there might be a charge for that. Like it might cost more for that. We're also charged for network traffic. So the number of bits that go between our server and clients, that's all charged. The storage that you used, it could be S3, AWS S3. It could be other storage for images and things like that. And you're also charged for other services like monitoring, cloud-hosted database. So they charge you for everything. They kind of nickel and dime you. And while it doesn't seem like a lot when you look at it on the face of it, it can add up. So you're kind of constrained here, and you won't blow the bank. So your credit card won't be emptied and put you in debt. So we're going to now look at using AWS. So I'm going to log into it. So as you can see, I'm running here from the VM, but I can run from anywhere. It doesn't really matter. But here we're ready to log in. So I'm going to sign in, and I've given myself a user ID that's a student user ID. This is the student user ID, so I'm going to sign in as a student. So this is the way you would see it. Now, if you're coming to here from non-Dawson, your teacher will have to set this up for you. So I'm going to click on my classrooms. There's other information here, but we haven't really done anything much with it, and we haven't set up a login account, an AWS account. This starter account is a little awkward, so we're going to leave that for now. The problem with AWS is that it's so big and there's so many things you can do that it can get very confusing when you're trying to learn it. I mean, I have a lot of experience in this kind of thing, and I find it very confusing, parts of it. So I'm trying to make sure that you can learn something within this framework. So under your classrooms, you should see something like this. I have a couple. You should probably see just the one I gave you, unless you have from other teachers. And then, so I clicked on Go to the Classroom. So, and this is like a disclaimer. So, and it's talking about the third party. So what happens with this is we have a third party that's actually setting up AWS Educate. It's not directly through AWS. So here I've logged into Vocarium, which is the company that supplies it. And on the right-hand side, I have my account status, so it's active. I've only used this many credits, which is pretty good because I've been running stuff for a while. This is the user ID. I can log out from here. Whatever, I can switch to different classes, and then I can get help. So I'm going to go back here. I don't need help right now. Shouldn't I click that? So on the left-hand side, I have a bunch of links that I can look at, and one of the things that you may be interested in is this. So there are restrictions. There's a lot of things that I can't use. So for example, we're going to be using VPNs. These are the only ones we're allowed to use. For the databases, these are the ones we're allowed to use. For access management, we can create users, but we can't. There's limited things we can do. I haven't asked you to do anything that you don't have access to. So you don't need to know the details of that, but you may want to check it if you're trying to do something with the remaining credits. So here, let's have a look at the account details. So with my account details, I see that this is for this current session, and I still have 71 days to go. And if I want to use the AWS CLI, I can install that on Ubuntu or anywhere, and I can use the credentials from here. So there are instructions for using the credentials for the CLI, but those are for using it for a regular AWS account. So for now, if we use it, we're going to use it from here. We just copy this to AWS credentials, and then we can use it. Oops, didn't need to do that. So now, normally what you do, so we use this kind of as a portal. It gives us access to credits on AWS. So let's launch the AWS console. So the AWS console gives me the AWS information. So here's my login ID, and it says federated login because it came from Vocarium. So it's not a straight login. And here's my account number, and then there's other information which I don't necessarily have access to. I can sign out if I want. And then here are my zones. So I'm using the zone that's local to me, which is US East. It's closest to Montreal. And then there's some support I can get. So there's documentation I can load. There's training. So if you want to do that, you can do. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of training. But I recommend that you do a very focused look at all of this information because, as I said, it's enormous. So, and down here we have solutions. So these are step-by-step how to do certain things. But again, some of them we're not allowed to do. So let's try, this is Lightsail, which is using lightweight virtual servers. So we do not have access to that, as you can see, because we're using AWS Educate credits. If you have a regular account, you may have access to that. And then there's a few others. This we may be able to use. Sorry, it's loading. Okay, we'll leave that for now. This is the one that you're going to use when you create your VM, and then, well, we're not going to use this for now, but there's a DNS registry. You can use IoT, and then there's some learning sites. So here's step-by-step guides with labs and videos that if you wanted to have a look at them, you can go ahead. So I've given you kind of a step-by-step launching a VM and configuring it in the next videos. So once we're here, if we have already launched a virtual machine, if we have things launched, then what we can use the services menu to go to EC2. So for now, we're going to stick to EC2 because that's one of the things that we're able to do with AWS Educate, and it allows us to launch VMs. So what we're seeing here is the Ec2 Dashboard. So it gives us information about what's running. So here we see API error. We're probably not allowed to have load balancers. But my website, I have a couple of things running. So when you first use this, you won't have anything running. So I'm going to clear this filter. And as you can see, I've got one stopped and a couple running. So this is the dashboard. So we can get to the dashboard once we've logged in using AWS Educate. So once we're finished with the dashboard, then we can go back to the management console. And at any point, we can just log off. So I'm going to sign out up here. I'm signed out of the console. Let's go back here. I'm going to sign out of here. So now I'm signed out and I can come back and use things when I want to use them. So that's an overview of AWS Educate.